You are listening to TRANSLAND, a podcast series about trans people in Iceland. My name is Ugla Stefanía or Owl, and I'm a trans campaigner, writer and filmmaker. I run the film project My Generation, which celebrates trans lives and trans experiences. This podcast series is a 4-part series where I will speak with trans people in Iceland about their experiences. In this episode, I will be speaking to Oliver Eli, who is an 18-year-old trans guy, and Sigga Birna, who is a counsellor at the National Queer Organization, where she runs a support group for trans kids and their families. While Iceland is generally a very open country, trans kids exist in a legal vacuum in Iceland, and the services provided to them aren't regulated enough.
I'm a counsellor at the LGBTQI Center in Reykjavik. We have really good counselling services, actually. We have 6 counsellors, psychologists and counsellors working here. My job has been for many years to work with trans kids, young trans people and their families. And I have support groups both for parents and for teenagers and young adults.
Oliver, you're a young trans person, obviously,
yeah.
And if you can tell us a little bit about what it's like to be a young trans person in Iceland today.
Well, I feel like overall the people and the society is very accepting and willing to learn. And I feel like the most ignorance from people comes from not knowing and not wanting to know more. But I feel like overall people are very accepting and understanding.
My feeling is that to be a trans person is quite easy in Iceland. I mean, easier than in many other countries. The kids that I'm working with and the teenagers and most of the young adults are very, none of them has problems in their closer society, So most schools are very accepting. Almost all the teachers that are working with these kids are really ready to learn, and I get a lot of calls. That's also my job, to counsel actually schools and other professionals that are working with trans kids and teenagers, and they're all so willing to learn.
There's such a difference between being willing to learn and then being antagonistic or not wanting to learn.
Yes,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the only time that I hear about prejudice and bad experiences is nightlife.
Right.
You know, that is, but the kids and the younger teenagers, they are not dealing with that.
They're not dealing with that.
So after 18 usually, and if people have started drinking and going out, sometimes I think that's the time when I hear about issues.
And why do you think the issues rise in the nightlife? I mean, I have some ideas to why, but what's your thoughts on it?
I think because people dare to say things, and when they are drinking, and they get more courageous, and they are just they are trying to be big themselves, and they have low self-esteem and insecurities, and it all comes out on that person.
Yeah.
Avoided it for a long period of time, but mostly because like in high school parties and stuff, with the IDs I have to show them to get in. And the lines to get in are gender separated, which is kind of ridiculous, but okay. So yeah, I avoided it for the longest time, but
it seems a bit like primary school to gender lines, doesn't it?
I thought this was a problem in one school in Iceland.
No,
not in that school. No, is it also like that in your school?
Yeah, it's like that here. Yeah,
that is outrageous.
Yeah, but me and my mom, we sent an email to the head of the school.
Great.
And just explained the situation, and so they allowed me to get an exception, and they just sent a teacher out to get me, which I felt was kind of I felt a little bit out,
It's kind of singling you out and othering you, isn't it?
It was. Yeah, so I talked to him a little bit about that, but I'm not much of a party person, so it doesn't affect me that much.
I remember being a teenager. I mean, I came out when I was about 17, 18, so I came out quite early. And I remember especially at parties or when I was in a setting where people could be a bit more relaxed, people would ask things, and they would say things. Like at a party, somebody would come and ask me a question about trans people, and all of a sudden I had to give everyone a trans 101 at a party on a Saturday.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think a lot of people experience this, and you're just like, well, I'm just trying to have fun. I just want to have a drink or, play some cards or whatever. I don't want to give you a trans 101. Why don't you come to something and, and get education about it? And I think trans people are often in that situation. Recently, there's been a case in Iceland where a young trans boy has not been allowed to change his name in one of the schools here, and it's been several times in the news, and I don't quite know what's happening right now, but maybe you could talk a little bit about that, because you had a completely different experience, Oliver, where your name was changed immediately.
Overnight.
So tell us a little about that.
I had been out in my school for quite some time before that. Then my mom just sent an email and asked for my name to be changed in the system. And she got an email like 10 minutes after that, and the next day at school it had been changed.
Yeah.
So it was literally no problem.
It's so simple, right?
Yeah.
And this seems to be the experience of most kids and parents and teenagers. This seems to be the experience. Right. If it's any problem, the schools try to figure it out. Right. And then we have this one school that did not want to change it, but that has been solved. But
they've changed it now.
No, that person had a name change. Has gone through the system and
got a legal name change.
Got a legal name change. Just got to that point, fortunately. So that solved itself for the school,
right?
Until the next time,
right? So why do you think the school was so reluctant to change it?
I think it's because that headmaster says he's following the laws. He's following the law, and that he says that everyone that does it is breaking the law. And if you go very literally through like every letter of the law, you might be breaking the law, but this is kind of a law that's very easy to go behind, and every school would not even think about it twice. But he is just really strict to it.
And there's no consequences.
No consequences.
Nobody's going to sue you because you changed the child's name.
No one.
So
it's just very stupid.
Yeah.
So just makes me very irritated.
I know, it seems unnecessary. I mean, I remember changing my name about 10 years ago in the school that I was, and it was no issue. So I don't understand why today, 2018, that would be an actual issue. But I guess we're sort of in times now where we haven't had a lot of trans teens been publicly out, and this is sort of the first generation of trans teens that we're seeing. I mean, I came out very early, and there was no one around my age when I came out. But I guess now we're seeing that there's going to be trans students in almost every school, because everybody's just able to be themselves. And I think maybe, this is just a case of the system failing a bit, because they're a bit confused, they don't know what to do, they might have some prejudice about it, and as you say, they might be following the law, and I guess it does illustrate that the law is flawed in many ways, because
that's what we know.
Changing your name in Iceland as a trans person is really difficult. I don't know if you've gone through that process yet, or no.
Unfortunately, I'm actually in a kind of a dilemma about that now, because we're going to our graduation trip this spring, and so that's like a kind of a problem for me, what to do with that. As of now, I'm just waiting, trying to figure out what to do next, and I've only just started hormones two months ago. So it's pretty much just waiting at this point.
It's a bit ridiculous that in Iceland you have to go through an official process for 18 months before you can apply for a name change, and then it takes time after that. And I think it doesn't really... It's a bit interesting, because trans people in Iceland are they're supposed to live in the right gender for a certain amount of time, and then the system doesn't help you do that, for example, with names. No. If you could get a name change right away, that would make things very simple. It would make things much easier for trans kids and for adults and everyone. In terms of trans kids who are coming out now, I think at age 6, they're going to have a name that they can't change until they're 18.
Yeah, it's terrible. Think of starting school and even changing your name at age 5. Like we have actually quite a few kids that have changed their names in kindergarten. Like many are changing their names 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. Yeah. And as you said, it's almost in every school now. It's like really a lot of schools that have kids that are trans, young. And those parents, they just can't understand why they can't change their kids' names, you know. And it's terrible. Like, for example, with the passport, and a lot of kids, like, you're 18 and you can take a driver license at 17. And I don't know about you, but
I haven't taken it because of the name.
Because you can't change the name.
Yeah. And this is what I hear all the time. They're just waiting for a name change until they take the driver license.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's just a sort of systematic discrimination, because usually other kids don't have to think about these things.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just ignoring the needs of trans kids and trans teens. When trans kids reach puberty, in Iceland they're fortunate enough to be able to access puberty blockers, but there's many issues with the way the healthcare system is providing the service, because there's no legal background or any sort of regulation on how this service is provided. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about how the system is doing now.
It's getting better really fast, because it's so few years ago that we started to actually think about this. But it's still really hard, and it's still very hard to get appointments, for example. It's the same issue both in the younger team up to 18 and the older team that you know very well. It's the same issue. It's so hard to reach them. It's so really hard, and this is what both the parents of the younger kids tell me, and the older kids that are calling themselves. I mean, it's waiting. Waiting is like the big word, and you said it earlier. I'm just waiting, I mean, exactly. This is. I mean, you sit down and where are you? What's going on with you? I'm waiting. You know, waiting for this now. I'm waiting for this now. I'm waiting for this person to call me or send me a letter. You're always waiting.
I know.
I'm getting so angry about this.
There's like a lack of urgency. They don't understand that you don't have time to wait, especially if you're a teenager and you're starting puberty. You don't have time, because puberty is coming. Changes are starting to happen that you don't want to happen. You don't have the luxury of time.
No.
And I feel like this isn't taken seriously enough. I remember when I first made my appointment, I was given a tip that the psychiatrist wasn't taking any new patients, but I had to mention that I was trans, and that's how I would get access to him.
Exactly.
It's still like that.
And it's really strange that you have to out yourself to a secretary at his office and say, oh, I'm trans and I need the service. And that's quite difficult for a lot of people who haven't told anyone they're trans.
I actually believe that everyone is trying to do their best. I don't think they want people to feel this way, you know. But they are. I think also it comes from the top, because there's just really few people working in this field, and none of them is working full time either. Actually, people that are now starting, they get the whole schedule, and I really liked when I saw that. They get a schedule. They get every appointment. They get appointment for 6 months.
Right.
So they get from the beginning to the end, like 6 appointments all at once.
That's very good.
And that's actually really good, because that makes that waiting and
more bearable.
Yes, because you know that you have this appointment in October, this one in November, this one in December, and it is like that. But I also think that there's a lot of fear when it comes to the younger the kids. There's fear to take steps that are needed. I mean, I had a support meeting with the parents on Wednesday. Few parents there with 5, 7, and 10-year-olds, or around that age. And many of my parents have the experience of trying to take the step of letting their kids express their gender, and they get the resistance from the whole extended family. I think almost every parent that has a young kid that has come to me, they have the story of the society, or someone in the society, someone in the family, someone around them says, you're pushing your kid to do this, or aren't you just letting him be or letting her be this way, or I mean, you just have to stop it. No one can know this so young. They all have to face this today as well.
Any trans person can tell you that they know who they are from a very young age, and nobody's giving surgeries or hormones to change their bodies until they're old enough to be able to do that.
The most important thing is just that no one can make anyone trans. And even if you had a child assigned male at birth, a cis child, and you would put him in a dress every day, that kid would have mental issues, serious mental issues. Like if it felt bad about being in this dress every day, and the parent would be, take on that dress, you know. And if you talk about this, it feels so like everyone's, of course, no one would do that. And everyone around that kid in the school, because every kid in Iceland goes to school. We don't do homeschooling. So there's always a lot of professionals around every kid. And that kid, if these professionals would really early on see that there was something wrong with this kid. And then it would be an issue. And then you're making something that's not.
No, it's like people never think about switching it around.
Yes.
Then they realize how ridiculous
it is. So ridiculous.
It's just about, I guess, about allowing children to explore and express themselves. I mean, not all trans girls like to wear dresses, not all trans boys like. So there's it's just a difference between how everybody wants to be, but it's about allowing them to do that.
Exactly. When we were talking about the prejudice in Iceland earlier on, I am talking about binary trans people. And I think it's and I'm talking a lot about people that actually pass very well. Older trans women still get prejudice in Iceland and feel it every day. You know, and so I'm talking about the kids and the teenagers that actually pass. And it's so much easier for a kid and a teenager, even like you were 18, you're 18 now. I'm 18. And even if you're 16, 17, you pass very well. And you know that. And you can see him.
Very aware of that.
And even if they come out 13, 14, 15, 16, it's so much easier for them to pass. And these kids and teenagers that pass very easily, they don't get the prejudice as much. And they are more accepted.
How do you think that's benefited your mental health, being able to come out this early?
Yeah, like I experienced when I was 15, 16, 17, I completely shut myself off. Just stayed in my room alone, confused. That was at the time when I was first getting any real education about what trans was. I was just very anxious at that time. Me and my mom started talking less, which was very serious for me. And it became a bigger deal than it could have been. I feel like if I had gotten that at 10, maybe even earlier, then that phase wouldn't have come.
I also think it's important in Iceland that young people in Iceland are very open. There are schools, like high schools, and that it's almost your second question, like what's your name and what pronoun do you use? And they're really and everything. And I think actually this is quite worldwide. I mean, in the Western world, that gender and sexuality is getting more fluid, and everyone. And this is very, very real in Iceland. So sometimes my clients tell me, or the kids tell me, that they are actually quite shocked how easy it was to tell their friends. You know, it's like they take it already. They didn't say anything. They just said okay. You know, it's no problem. Or you know, when you have like been holding it in and not able to say anything for years.
You expect it to be this like big thing. It's just a bubble that bursts and everybody's crazy. But then everybody's just like, oh, cool. What do you want to have for dinner? You know?
Exactly. And the young people are much better at using the different pronouns, and it's much easier for the younger people than for the older generations.
What do you see the future like for trans people?
I think we're heading in the right direction, definitely. And there are some technical things that need to fix, some laws, healthcare system. The society will follow those changes. And if we improve education and do more education, and to younger kids too, then I think we're on a good roll.
I really agree with you that we are in the right direction. We are going there, and the health system is going there as well. And I think that's very important. And I really hope that the law will change just next year. That we will have better laws. I really hope so. And that's going to help a lot. But we need a better regulation and better frame around everything that has to do with health work for young kids. We have to lose the fear. We have to be able to put young people on puberty blockers like 10, 11 years old. And I would love to see them put them on hormones 13, 14, or even like younger, like much younger, together with the blockers like they're doing in the America example.
It's so that they can develop a at the same time as their peers.
That's what we are seeing in the US. We are seeing them being able to develop at the same time. We are seeing the younger boys being able to grow because they get testosterone while they're in their puberty. So they actually grow.
Yeah, and it has massive changes to their bodies in the way that they want.
Yes, exactly.
They're
and it's helping.
A new lease of life, you know?
Yeah, and it's helping so much, and it's giving them so much hope as well.
Yeah.
These years are terrible. Like 10, 11 till 14, 15, 16. It's so hard.
Yeah.
I want to see this happen.
Yes, thank you both for coming, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah,
thank you.
If you liked this episode, be sure to share it far and wide and stay tuned for the next one, where I will talk with Sonquid and Alexander about their experiences with trans-related healthcare in Iceland. If you want to support the work I do, please check out my Patreon site for my generation. See you next time.